Hi and welcome to this video in which I'll look at traditional subtractive and wavetable synthesis along with phase modulation aka FM synthesis in Parawave Rapid. My earlier video gave an overview of Rapid, and I'd suggest watching that to give you an overall impression, as the interface of Rapid does an excellent job of creating an air of simplicity, but Rapid is a synth with hidden depths. One of the keys to unlocking Rapid is realizing that each oscillator has a per voice effects to change the waveform, and we'll take a look at that now as we look at traditional subtractive synthesis techniques. Every waveform in Rapid is in fact a wavetable. But if we look at the factory example basic 1 here, which is the first one, we can morph from a sawtooth wave to a square wave to a triangle and finally, if my mouse will let me, to a sine wave. New users will appreciate the tooltips. As you hover over an item on the screen, the tooltip will give you information about it, which is a great way to learn about Rapid. You can of course switch this off in the options. There are a lot of wavetables on board to choose from. If I go up here and select them, you'll see that there are 260. You can import your own, but for this section I'm going to be focusing on traditional sort of subtractive synthesis, and you'll find that the common waveforms here suffice. If we look at analog saws, for example, you'll see that as you morph through this, it imitates the characteristics of certain analog synths with less than perfect sawtooth waveforms. You'll see the little harmonics and little inaccuracies that are creeping in, which can help you create a convincing analog sound. In reality, I actually find that the basic wave does absolutely fine, and there are ways that you can mold that to suit whatever task you have in mind. So we'll start off by having a look at the effects that are built into the oscillator, and you'll notice that, for example, there's a hard sync option. This will let you, with a single oscillator, instead of tying up a second one, you can actually let me take the level down a wee bit. You can mimic the hard sync of having two oscillators, but you're only actually using one, so that means you can build a more complex patch without stealing a second oscillator. There are various other parameters as well. So if we look at double, you'll see that this allows you to create variations on the waveform, and likewise if we have a look at mirror, you can create some interesting variations. One of the ones that is specifically targeted is organic drift, specifically targeted at creating analog style sounds. Now if you have a look at the drift command, it's a bit extreme at the moment. Let's dial that down to around about there. It just introduces a very subtle drift to the oscillators, mimicking an analog oscillator. And also this warm command, if I dial it up, you'll see rather than just an EQ, it is physically changing the waveform very subtly there. So I'll leave that at about, again, roughly the 9 o'clock position. So let's have a listen to that sawtooth. Okay, we'll introduce a second one. We can, if you've spent a long time getting the oscillator just the way you want it, you can copy an oscillator and paste it into oscillator B. That's going to give us two that they're drifting at a slightly different rate, as you can see, because it says mimics chaotic phase and pitch drift, so the two of them aren't drifting in the same way, as you can see, so they will sound slightly out of tune with one another, but to make sure we'll just we'll get a rich sound like so. Now, I haven't touched the Unison yet. We'll have a look at that. It's quite a comprehensive Unison, but really, if we're going to mimic a traditional analog subtractive, this is the way to do it with sort of 2 or 3 oscillators. So let's take the filter down. It's set at the moment to a low pass 12 dB filter. The envelopes, A is traditionally set to the amp envelope, so in other words that's the final envelope, and B is routed to the filter. It doesn't have to be. You can route them. All the envelopes can be routed wherever you wish. So if I bring up the envelope down on the filter, I'll just take the overall level down a wee bit, and there's a handy limiter as well on the master output. So we're already getting quite close to a traditional analog sound. It's very easy to get rich, complex sounds, particularly if you use the drift command. The effects in Rapid are excellent, and if I just select, let's put a dual delay on here, take the levels down a wee bit, and we'll put select the second slot and put a reverb on. Now this reverb is one of the best reverbs I have heard on any plugin, and just listen to the tail of that reverb. The good news is you can actually use Rapid as an effects plugin. This means that you can route your other VSTs through the effects in Rapid, and particularly for the reverb, that's something that I'll be doing. So with 1 or 2 tweaks, here's some presets that I've saved away from that exact patch. So let's have a closer look at using wavetables to generate a pad type sound. So for the pad sound that I have in mind, I'm looking for a sound that's rich in harmonics and has movement throughout the sound. So let's go to the actual waveforms, to the wavetables rather themselves, and I'm looking for something that is relatively complex. So I could choose something like flash, juicy, or really almost anything, but I want a sort of spiky sound. Let's have a listen. Let's turn the gain down a wee bit. That's perfect. Now if I double click on the morph button, it puts it exactly in the center of the position of the wavetable. In fact, I can look at the different visualizations by clicking on a 3D or a 2D display. So you can see I'm in the middle of the wavetable there, and I was going to assign an oscillator to modulate the morph position. So if I click on LFO and drag that over, you'll see now it's moving nicely. It's oscillating between the 2 extremes of the waveform. So I'll just slow that down a wee bit. Now let's have a listen. Now personally I like to select a triangle wave, as it doesn't tend to hang around in the extremes so much. It transfers instantly from up to down. So let's have a listen to that. Interestingly, you can crossfade between 2 different LFO shapes. So if I do that, you'll see I'm getting not quite a triangle, not quite a sine. And if I assign something exotic like noise, you'll see that if I crossfade, I'm actually getting now a noisy triangle, which for the sound that I'm creating is not what I want. So I'll put it back to triangle. But that can be very useful if you want to introduce some random movement, some random elements. So let's have a listen to what we've got. We'll just tame that a wee bit with a filter. That's that's quite interesting. Now, if we have a look at the Unison side of things, we can thicken this up quite nicely. If I set it to 5 voices, and we leave the spread as it is and just adjust the detune. Good, we'll put the start of an LFO in, because for a pad we're going to want a slower attack and a slower release, a longer release rather. Right, now if we're quite happy with that, we're going to copy that again from if I right click rather than left, select copy, right click and paste. Now then, that's not being modulated, it's copied the wavetable without modulating it. I'm going to go in and select a different one now. So I was going to see what Juicy sounded like, and let's assign that to LFO B. So I'm going to take the it's set to 5000. I'm going to take the plus symbol, root, and root B to that. Let's switch off oscillator A and have a listen. Slow that down a wee bit. I'll actually leave that one on a sine. Let's put the two together and see what they sound like. So yeah, we're getting quite a nice effect now. Now we can polish that off with, let's put some chorus on that. So I'll select the first effect slot. Let's go to, where's the chorus gone? There it is. Let's try chorus X, and we'll call it preset chorus ensemble number 1. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put some of that reverb. I dial up some of the space and select, say, Supernova. You get that gorgeous tail. So this is a pad sound that I created, actually followed a tutorial by Signs of Life. His YouTube channel is well worth checking out if you're into ambient music and want a few tutorials. He did a tutorial on a slow-moving pad using wavetables, and I mimicked a lot of the techniques in that in Rapid. And if you look, you'll see I've got 2 wavetables slowly going through, slowly being modulated. It's backed up by a triangle wave just to give a little bit of body to the sound, and through a dual delay and a reverb. And let's have a listen to this. One of the LFOs is giving gentle movement to the filter, and 2 of the others are moving through the wavetables like so. This is another example of a modulated wavetable type pad, backed up with a factory oscillator to give it a bit of body. I'm going a bit more extreme now with the modulation. If you look at the reverb mix, you'll see that that's set to an LFO, which is in turn being modulated by another LFO to give a sort of, to give this sort of effect. So let's have a look at phase modulation. I'm going to use 2 sine waves to create an FM style guitar patch. I've just created a little blank patch here. It's got an envelope set up with a guitar type sound, and I've got some effects already set up to save me boring you whilst I did that earlier. And I've got 2 waveforms selected here, 2 sine waves, and traditionally the way that FM would work is you'd apply one sine wave to another one, and let's do that right now by selecting phase modulation from oscillator. So this, I have the volume turned down of oscillator A. We're not hearing it. It is affecting oscillator B. So as I bring up, if we listen to the volume, there's oscillator B as a sine wave. If I bring up this value here so that A is modulating oscillator B, we're getting the change in tonal characteristics that you normally associate with FM synthesis. Now if I adjust the semitones of the waveform that we can't hear, we can hear it affecting the oscillator B, and I'm getting close to the sound that I'm looking for already. On certain later FM synths you could work with oscillators that weren't simply sine waves, and of course you can work with any wavetable within Rapid using this technique. So what I'm going to do is just do what something like the TX81Z did and work with a triangle wave, and so put that about there, and you'll hear we get just a very subtly different tone. But what's even more clever about Rapid is if I switch off oscillator B altogether, so we're just hearing oscillator A, and if I go to effects type and just select phase modulation, I can apply phase modulation to the same oscillator by dialing in the amount over here. Whoop, take the level back up. And I'm getting, well, if I take that up an octave, I'm getting very close to the sort of sound I had in mind. So let's add a bit of delay and reverb and see how close to a guitar type sound we're getting, or an FM guitar type sound we're actually getting. So that's using a single oscillator, applying phase modulation to itself. There's a difference of -12 there. If you're looking for bell type tones, you wouldn't obviously select a whole octave, you'd go somewhere in between. So you've got the odd harmonics coming through, but bell tones are very easy to create. I just chose this particular style one, a more melodic style, and of course if I put a bit of compression and distortion on, I can have an overdriven type sound. So I hope that gives you an insight into how Rapid generates 3 differing methods of synthesis. In the next video I'm going to show you how Rapid offers what I believe to be one of the finest implementations of granular synthesis. So if you haven't yet done so, please subscribe and select the notification bell to be notified of all new video releases. And until the next video, thanks for watching.